Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And guys, it's good to be back. The John Campea Show, of course, has been on hiatus for about 3 weeks as I took a little bit of time to kind of recharge my batteries and get caught up on a whole bunch of stuff I was falling behind on, including my little documentary project that I've been working on. But it is good to be back, ladies and gentlemen. And listen, I want to apologize in advance for any technical glitches today. I'm a little bit rusty. I'm a little bit out of practice. But it's good to have all you guys here. And we do have a hell of a lot of stuff to talk about here today. And we're going to get things started right here off the top with this. And it's unfortunate that we need to come back from hiatus and talk about something really unfortunate. But news broke late last night that actress Kelly Preston passed away after a 2-year battle with breast cancer at the age of 57. Now, many people will think of her from, of course, my first memory of Kelly Preston was when I was just a kid, man. She was in this movie Mischief that it was kind of a special movie to me. I really liked her in Mischief. And then she was in some higher profile projects like Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. She was in Jerry Maguire, of course. And a lot of people who are fans of the geek and genre stuff, we remember her from Sky High. And she was great in that. But I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you. When I think of Kelly Preston, I think of actually her marriage. I mean, and this may sound a little bit weird, and bear with me for a moment. But, you know, in a world today where, couples in general don't seem to stay together very long, let alone celebrity couples. I mean, celebrity couples are like an endangered species. They don't last very long. Like Hugh Jackman's marriage is one of the few exceptions. But you know what? She was married for 28 years. Her and John Travolta had a marriage of 28 years, which is kind of remarkable to me. And they were always very public with their affection for one another, and joke as you will about, the kind of the turn John Travolta's career took over the last number of years, including, one of his last ones that Kelly Preston, her last movie was with Gotti. It's amazing to see that, the two of them, celebrity marriages don't last all that long, man. And it was really a special, special thing to see theirs last the way that it did. And it was really sad hearing the news. I mean, when anybody that young passes away, it's absolutely tragic. And of course, whenever it's somebody that their work has touched us in different ways, whether that was in Twins or Jerry Maguire or Sky High, or for me, Mischief, or any one of the many, many television series she did, it's always sad to hear. And this is definitely a sad note to start back on. But of course, once again, Kelly Preston, wife of John Travolta, mother and actress who had a really nice career, and whose work has touched many of us in a lot of different ways, passes away at the age of 57. Guys, what is your favorite memory of Kelly Preston and the work she did on screen? Kind of express it as a celebration of her career and whatnot. Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go on to a couple of more off the tops right here. And it's another little bit of an unfortunate one that we got to kind of go off the top with this. Tenet, by the way, just a reminder, this week was supposed to be the opening week for Tenet. This week was supposed to be the opening week for Tenet. The 17th was supposed to be this week. Of course, it got bumped to the 31st. Then it got bumped again to August 12th. Well, don't hold your breath too much for that August 12th date, because it's looking more and more possible like it might not make that August 12th date either, as it is being reported in most of the major trades that a bunch of analysts, industry analysts, are predicting that Tenet is likely to be delayed again. This much comes to us from Variety. If movie theaters are banking on Christopher Nolan's Tenet to ride to their rescue, they may have to wait a lot longer for help. That's the takeaway from a new note by Eric Handler, leading exhibition industry analyst with MKM, they're kind of big in the industry, partners, who predicts that there is a low likelihood that Tenet will open on August 12th as planned because of the rising number of COVID-19 cases in such major markets as Texas, Florida, and California. Handler also cites the slow reopening of the New York City economy as another reason Nolan's epic will likely be delayed again. It has already moved twice. Movie theaters in the Big Apple remain closed, and there's no clear indication on when they will be allowed to welcome audiences again. Now, it's kind of funny that this report comes out right now, because this weekend I just watched an incredible UFC event. The UFC event this week was great. By the way, just want to point out my predictions in the made car, 5 for 5, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to point out my predictions were 5 for 5. Thank you very much. Anyway, watching that great card, but one of the things that was heavily advertised, and you know it wasn't cheap to advertise it like this, but one of the big things that got advertised over and over and over again on UFC was, of course, Tenet. Tenet was being talked about a lot. So you know they put up a lot of money to have Tenet talked about, and they kept talking about August 12th, releasing in theaters on August 12th, so on and so forth. And now they're saying, like, maybe it ain't going to happen. Like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's going to get pushed again. And, you know, the one thing that they raised there that I think is a pretty valid observation and valid concern is the fact that you've got a lot of these major cities, major states like Florida, Texas. It's not just New York City. Because initially, a lot of people were kind of worried about, you know, can the openings happen with things in LA and New York City? But we're talking about entire states right now. And right now, I think it's a bit of a coin toss. I think it's a bit of a coin toss right now. And we will see what happens, but we'll keep an eye on this as issues develop. But right now, a lot of the insider sources in the industry are saying it is not a guarantee that Tenet is going to get bumped again. But they're saying the likelihood of it opening on the 12th may be kind of low. And so, which would just be really unfortunate from a film fan's perspective, and exclusively from a film fan's perspective, that would be pretty devastating. That would be pretty devastating if that were to happen, because I know we've all been very much looking for this, but let's keep our eye on the situation and see how it develops. All right. With that down, let's talk about one more thing off the top, and that is this. This just happened this morning, which obviously got my attention. I'm very excited about it. You guys know one of my favorite shows on television it was a Fox show. It is now a Netflix show, is Lucifer. I'm a big fan of the television show Lucifer. I was a little bit late to the party. Didn't look all that interesting to me. I watched a few episodes, got immediately hooked. And while I will not say that Lucifer is my absolute favorite show on television, I will say that I think the character of Lucifer Morningstar in that show is my favorite character on TV. Lucifer Morningstar is my favorite character on television right now. Well, we know season 5 is coming, and we know they just announced that they're going to do a season 6, but they just dropped a trailer for Lucifer season 5. And in it, they drop a couple of significant kind of plot twists, but I don't think they were really big spoilers, because I have a feeling they are plot twists that are probably going to be revealed like in the first episode. But we see in the trailer Lucifer returning, only to find out it's not actually Lucifer, but rather his twin brother, Michael, getting more into the whole setting of, you know, the various archangels and things like that, which I think is pretty interesting. And then, of course, the real Lucifer returns. I just got a feeling that it's probably all stuff that happens in the first episode too, so I don't think it's major spoilers, but I do think it's interesting telling us what kind of the basic setup of a lot of the plot is going to be. One of the things that I did find kind of interesting is the fact that, what's the actor's name? Dennis Haysbert? The guy who's playing God. I did find it a little bit interesting that they didn't have God, because that's one of the big things about this season of Lucifer was they announced that God's going to be in there. They got Dennis to come in and play the role, which was a great choice, I think. And they didn't put him in the first trailer, which I thought was kind of interesting. Anyway, I got a big kick out of this Lucifer trailer. Of course, I'm very much looking forward to the show itself. Guys, did you have a chance to check out this new trailer for Lucifer season 5? If so, what did you think? Do you think they gave away too much? Or do you feel like me, this is all probably just all set up stuff and not really the major plot twist of the season? How do you feel about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that stuff down and out of the way, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with the main topics by going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by John McFarlane, who writes, "Hey, John, I stumbled across a new Netflix movie yesterday, almost entirely by accident, called The Old Guard, which I had never heard of, with Charlize Theron. I watched it because there wasn't much else to do, and I loved it. Have you heard of or seen this? If so, what are your thoughts?" All right, thanks a lot for submitting that question, man. And yes, Netflix, of course, nefariously bad at marketing their own content. So I'm not surprised that a lot of people didn't even know this movie was popping up on Netflix this weekend. I'm not a big fan of Netflix original movies in general. There are exceptions. Like, some of them have been fantastic. For example, The Irishman. I really love The Irishman. And there are some like that. I find quite often Netflix original movies are usually quite poor, but there are some exceptions. So out comes this new one with Charlize Theron. And I gotta say, I really liked it. I really, really like this movie. Now, it's not just Charlize Theron. Also, you got Kiki Lane in it. She's the black girl you see at the far right of the picture. She, of course, it kind of had a big breakthrough in If Beale Street Could Talk, and she was fabulous in that. But also, it was killing me watching the movie. I'm like, who is this guy? This guy right here on the immediate left. I'm like, oh, I'm watching it with Ann. I'm like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? And Ann's like, oh, it's Jafar. And yes, it is. It's Marwan Kenzari from the live action version of Aladdin. And I know a lot of people didn't love the Jafar character in that movie. I did. I thought it was a really nice kind of interpretation of the character of Jafar. And anyway, the basic idea of The Old Guard, if you saw any of the trailers for it, is basically this notion. This is kind of, you can tell they're kind of an independent paramilitary group, this small group. But you also find out in the trailer, so it's no spoiler, they are immortals who have been around for hundreds and a couple of them thousands of years. They've been around and they cannot die. So instantly you got me hooked off right there. The action in the film is kind of like on the level of Atomic Blonde. And, you know, I loved the action in Atomic Blonde, also with Charlize Theron. The action is very reminiscent of Atomic Blonde or, say, a John Wick. It's terrific action. And the mythology they create in this movie, I thought was bang on the money. I thought it was just really interesting. It had some depth to it. It raised a lot of questions. But, and here's an important thing about this. The filmmakers with Old Guard, especially when it comes to mythology, they never felt the need that, oh, we have to explain O-Vision everything about this movie to the audience. We have to explain everything to the audience. And they resisted the temptation to do that, and they left a lot of it just as a basic mystery. You know, a lot, because it's a mystery to them. Their own origins is a mystery to them. So they didn't feel the need to go in and give this deep explain-o segment to totally explain everything about where they come from and how they do everything that they do. And they just really focus on the story at hand. And I personally really appreciated that. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mind if a story wants to go deeper and explain mythology. Sometimes I think it's, you don't want to pull back the curtain too much. And I think some movies are guilty of pulling back the curtain too much. This movie didn't do that. And I, for one, appreciated it. And it kept the focus on the immediate story and the action. And now, look, this is not a perfect movie. Narratively, there are some things that happen that makes me go, was that the right decision to make there? I'm not so sure it was. But I'll tell you what, overall, I had a really good time. And here's one of the things I really appreciate about it. And I won't give any spoilers away. But this is a movie that does something at its ending as well as any movie I've ever seen it done. They wrap up the movie in a very complete, satisfying way, and yet throw the door open for either a sequel or for it to become a franchise. A lot of times we see movies do one or the other. lot of the times we see movies fail at one or the other. A lot of times we see movies try to do both and they don't do it very well. And I got to tell you, the ending of this film, I thought, was a perfect example of how to completely tie up the movie, make it feel like its own standalone project, like it wasn't just made so it can be the introduction to a franchise, and yet open the door and kick the door open for where it could go in the future. And this movie did a really nice job of that. So I got to tell you guys, I quite enjoyed The Old Guard on Netflix, which doesn't happen very often for me. Did you guys have a chance to see this movie? If so, what did you think about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Aaron, who writes, saw a couple of good movies this weekend, but my favorite was the new Tom Hanks movie, Greyhound. It was originally supposed to be in theaters, but Apple Plus picked it up. Tom Hanks is a national treasure. You'll get no argument from me or my wife on that. And I loved this movie. What did you think of it? I hope it gets some Oscar consideration. All right, thanks for saying that in, man. And yeah, Old Guard wasn't the only significant film project to drop on streaming this week. And we had Old Guard drop on Netflix. Palm Springs also dropped on Hulu, but admittedly, I haven't had a chance to watch Palm Springs yet, even though I'm very interested in watching it. I just didn't have a chance. But of course, the new Tom Hanks film Greyhound also debuted, and it was on Apple TV Plus. And I was interested in this film when they originally announced it. It was supposed to go to theaters. Apple decided to pick it up. They sold off the rights to Apple to put it up on Apple Plus. Very excited to watch it. And I got around to watching it. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not a big fan of this movie. And I'm going to tell you what my primary kind of issue with the film is. My primary issue with this film is it's really not a movie. It's one scene. Greyhound is basically one long scene with very little story. Like, the scenario is set up right from the beginning, right? It's set up that Tom Hanks is leading an escort group for a group of supply ships that are supporting the British allies. They've got to take these ships across and try to protect them from enemy U-boats that is in the seas to sink them. Like thousands of allied ships have been sunk. So they set the premise, right? They set the premise up. And they set the premise up pretty well. But that's basically it. The movie is the premise. And then it's just one scene. It's just one prolonged action sequence. And then the movie ends. And that's it. Then it's done. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not even going to refer to it as a movie anymore. It's just the scene is great. There's some thrilling moments. There's a really good sense of tension in it. You know what? This is one of those films I was watching. And I had the feeling watching it that this probably would be a better experience if I was watching it on a big screen in a movie theater. I think it would add to the tension and the thrill of it all, and heart pounding in your chest, certain scenes. But basically, the entire movie is a prolonged yelling of bearing 2651, sighting 123. Target acquired at Mark 455. That's basically all the dialogue in the movie. That's the whole dialogue movie. They do this one little minor sort of side story with Tom Hanks and his appreciation for a particular crew member, and something happens there. But that was very minor and very short. It sets up at the beginning of the movie that, before he takes on this command, he had fallen in love with a woman. And they never really go back or revisit that again. It's just one scene off the ship and the rest of it goes. Now, again, as a scene, it's very good. But when the movie ended, I was just kind of like, it really wasn't much of a movie. There's no story progression. It's just this one prolonged action sequence that happens over the course of just a couple of days. And so I don't think it's bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I think Greyhound is a bad film. And Tom Hanks is Tom Hanks. He gives a great performance in the lead and he carries it. He absolutely does. But just when it was all done, I was like, yeah, there wasn't much of a story there, was it? And so I turned to Ann and I said, what did you think of it? And because it has Tom Hanks, she said, it's the greatest movie of all time, which I appreciate. My wife has an undying loyalty to Tom Hanks. But yeah, I got to say, I wasn't that thrilled. And if you had asked me prior to the weekend, you said, John, you're going to watch this Netflix original one, The Old Guard, and you're going to watch a Tom Hanks World War II epic, Greyhound. Which one do you think you're going to like more? Obviously, I would have put $1,000 that I would have liked Greyhound more. I actually ended up liking The Old Guard more. But anyway, guys, like the person who sent in the question, I'm sure there's a lot of people who really did appreciate it for the strong points in the film. What did you think of Greyhound? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Sammy DeWise writes, greetings, John, and please let me say how much I've been looking forward to your show returning. Oh, thank you so much, Sammy. It's great to be back. Anyway, wondering if you saw that Disney Plus has put X-Men Days of Future Past up, but without censoring out the nude butt shot or the F-bomb. My question is, why cover the butt shot in Splash, but leave this stuff in X-Men? Thanks. All right. Thanks a lot, man, for sending that in. And for those of you who not caught it, X-Men Days of Future Past is apparently now going up, or might even be up right now, on Disney Plus in North America. Now, it has been on Disney Plus in other territories already. And it became a topic of discussion. Because as we discussed ad nauseum, when Disney Plus put up Splash on their American version of Disney Plus, they didn't censor anything out. But one of the things they did do was they, in a scene where you saw Daryl Hannah's bare ass, they CGI'd her hair longer just so her hair covered her butt. Some people made a big deal out of it. I never thought it was a big deal. It's not like they edited scenes out of the movie. It's not like they fundamentally changed the movie. I thought it was much ado about nothing. And when the topic came up, well, you know, in other territories where they're showing X-Men Days of Future Past, they've got like a butt shot and they've got like an F-bomb dropping. Isn't that a little bit inconsistent? And what I was fairly certain of was, you know, one of the things I said was, well, yeah, but I bet you when they bring X-Men Days of Future Past over to the North American version of Disney Plus, I bet you they will do something to either edit out the F-bomb or bleep over the F-bomb or something. They'll do something creative, blah, 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 to keep it pretty friendly too. And I felt fairly certain. I don't know if you guys saw the episodes, but I was like, you know what, guys, I'm telling you, when they bring it over, they're probably going to censor that too. Well, guess what? They're not. They are keeping in the butt shot, and they're keeping in Hugh Jackman's F-bomb. As a matter of fact, Hugh Jackman got on social media and he posted, Days of Future Past becomes the first movie to air on Disney Plus, completely uncensored. Of course, that's not true. There are many projects that are uncensored on Disney Plus. But that was my future, but let's be honest, it's more like my past. So he put that up on there as well. So it raises the question. It brings up the question. Why did Disney put in CGI in Splash to extend Daryl Hannah's hair to cover her ass, yet they put up X-Men Days of Future Past and they don't? They don't do anything to cover the F-bomb, to cover the bare ass, or anything like that. Why one and not the other? When some people like me were very certain that when they brought it over to Disney Plus, I'm sure they're going to do the same thing that they did Splash and it won't be a big deal. And yet here we are, they didn't. So why one? Indeed. Why one and not the other? Well, I've got 4 possibilities here about why they decided to not censor any of the stuff in X-Men Days of Future Past when in fact they did cover Daryl Hannah's ass. And it could be any one of these 4 things. It could be any combination of these 4 things, or it might be all of them packaged into one. Here are my theories about why they're not censoring X-Men Days of Future Past, whereas they did put the hair to cover over Daryl Hannah's ass. Reason number 1, or possibility number 1, Disney Plus sees Splash as a truly family film. That's one option here. Now, when you look at something like X-Men Days of Future Past, or really most comic book movies today, they are not really family films. They're good for the family, but they're not family films. Like, they very much are PG-13 movies. So one explanation could be that, Disney Plus looked at Splash and they say, other than the bare ass shot, this movie Splash is very much a very family film. And we feel we can market it as a family film. The bare ass shot is one thing that really stands in contrast to that. So you know what? No, big deal. We'll use CGI. We'll extend out Daryl Hannah's hair, cover it there. We have a very family film in Splash. That's one possibility. I'm not saying that's it, but I'm saying that's one possibility. Possibility number two, that unlike extending the hair of Daryl Hannah to cover her bare ass, that doesn't change the movie at all. That doesn't change Splash in the least. But possibility number two is that maybe they thought that taking out the R-rated stuff in Days of Future Past did fundamentally change an aspect or two of X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, I've made the argument on this show, and I still stand by it, that Disney covering Daryl Hannah's ass, again, in no way fundamentally changes that movie. In no way. It doesn't change our understanding of any of the characters. It doesn't change our perception of any of the scenes. It doesn't change anything with the narrative at all. It changed nothing. Maybe Disney looked at this situation. Again, this is just a theory. Maybe Disney looked at the situation saying, you know what, that F-bomb speaks to the character. Or that butt shot speaks to our understanding of the scene. Again, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm saying this is a possibility. So whereas with Splash, covering the bare ass didn't fundamentally change anything about the movie, the characters, our understanding of the characters, our understanding of the scenes, but maybe they looked at the Days of Future Past thing and felt, you know what? Taking out the F-bomb, covering that scene, cutting out that scene, that does fundamentally change something about the movie, and we don't want to fundamentally change anything about the movie. Possibility number one, they see Splash as a total family film. Possibility number two, they thought taking out the R stuff in Days of Future Past might fundamentally change an element of the film. Possibility number three, the Splash situation, or as I spelt it, Spash. Have you guys seen Spash? Fabulous movie. Anyway, number three, the Splash situation may have fundamentally changed their minds. I mean, it is possible, however unlikely, that maybe Disney, looked at the Splash situation, what happened with the covering and the hair, and they thought, you know what, was it even worth it doing it? I mean, really, was it worth it doing it? Because, companies like people, they do things, they try things. Sometimes they do the best things. Sometimes they do stupid things. And you learn from your successes and your failures. Maybe Disney looked at what they did with Splash and thought, you know what, at the end of the day, we really didn't even bother needing to do that. We didn't need to do that. And so then when Days of Future Past is coming up, they just decided, you know what, just leave it. Let's decide whether or not we put it on Disney Plus, and maybe we put it on Hulu instead. But either way, let's just leave it as it is. It's not that bad. Overall, the movie is still PG-13. Let's just leave it. That's a possibility. Okay, so number one, they saw Splash primarily as a family film. Number two, they thought that taking out the R-rated stuff may fundamentally change an element of the movie, and they didn't want to do that. Number three, maybe they thought, hey, we learned a lesson from Splash or Spash. We learned a lesson from that, and maybe we'll make an adaptation here. But there's a fourth possibility here, that this one may sound a little bit crazy. Maybe it is a bit crazy. What if this was all just a big marketing gimmick for Days of Future Past? That's unlikely. It's unlikely. I'm fully acknowledging here it's unlikely, but follow me here just for a second why I consider it at least a possibility. What if Disney's marketing, and they have a lot of geniuses over at Disney marketing. Disney knows how to market their crap. What if they thought, let's make a big deal out of X-Men Days of Future Past when we're ready to put it on. Let's create this situation. Let's say Splash. Let's do something completely harmless with Splash. I don't know, CGI hair to cover her butt. Okay, so that way, when it's come times for us to release X-Men Days of Future Past, we can say, look, guys, we're releasing this one completely uncensored. Again, I am not saying that is likely. And that's a lot of foresight, if that's what went on. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just throwing out there with a lot of the very sophisticated, advanced, kind of weird things that Disney marketing has done before. I wouldn't fall out of my seat in shock and surprise if we were to find out that the whole Splash thing was just a setup for a marketing gimmick for X-Men Days of Future Past being released. Again, I don't think it's likely, but it's a possibility. So let's revisit again. Why did they put up X-Men Days of Future Past uncensored when they did the thing with Splash to cover ass? A couple of possibilities. Could be any one of them. Could be a combination of a couple. Could be all of them combined. Number one, they saw Splash as a totally family film, and so they wanted to address that. Possibility number two, they thought taking out any of the R-rated stuff would fundamentally change an aspect of the movie that they did not want to change. And after all, the movie itself is still a PG-13 movie. Possibility number three, maybe they decided that Splash changed their minds. Their whole example and exercise and experiment with the Splash stuff, maybe that changed their minds. And number four, as unlikely as it sounds, maybe it was all just one big gimmick. One big gimmick for setting up X-Men Days of Future Past. So those are the possibilities there, guys. Why do you think Disney decided to extend the hair and Splash, but didn't do any censoring or editing or finagling or artistic expression, whatever, to cover up some of the more traditionally R-rated material in X-Men Days of Future Past? Do you agree with any of the possibilities I raised? Do you think it's a combination? Do you think it's something completely different? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Blue Devil, who writes, "Hey, John. Variety reported that the Batman will have a spin-off show that will focus on the GCPD, this is the Gotham City Police Department, Police of Gotham, and Matt Reeves is set to be an executive producer in it. And it will be streamed on HBO Max. It's unclear if Jeffrey Wright, who's going to be playing Commissioner Gordon in the upcoming Matt Reeves Batman movie, will reprise his role as Commissioner Gordon. I like that they're doing this, but isn't this just the same as the Gotham TV show on Fox? Interesting question. What are your thoughts?" All right, thanks for sending that in, man, and for asking. And yeah, for those of you who may have missed it, they have announced that on top of Matt Reeves' Batman movie, which is coming out with Robert Pattinson and, of course, Jeffrey Wright. I'm very excited about Jeffrey Wright playing Commissioner Gordon. I think he's going to be awesome in that. They have announced that HBO Max is developing a TV series based on this Batman universe. It's going to be completely based and rooted in this Matt Reeves Batman universe where Robert Pattinson is Batman, and they're going to be basically doing a new show looking at the underbelly. This is what's written here in Variety. HBO Max has given a series commitment to a drama set in the Gotham Police Department from Matt Reeves and Terence Winter, Variety has learned. The Untitled series will be set in a world Reeves is creating for the feature film The Batman, with the intent of being to launch a new Batman universe across multiple platforms. It is said to build on the film's examination of the anatomy of corruption in Gotham City. It is the first project announced under Reeves' new overall deal with Warner Brothers Television Group. All right. So we've got a new Batman series that won't have Batman himself in it and is going to focus on the Gotham City Police Department. If some of you are wondering if that sounds familiar, well, you're not wrong. It very much sounds like the Fox TV series Gotham. Now, let me tell you about my thoughts on the TV series Gotham that was on Fox. I thought the idea for the show was great. A show that just focused on the city before the days of Batman and focused on the early career of Jim Gordon, who would go on to become Batman's one of his greatest allies and, of course, the commissioner of the police department in Gotham City. Gotham to me, and some of you may have heard me say this before, the show Gotham to me worked when it actually focused on that stuff. Crime in Gotham, kind of trying to be managed by this young police officer, Jim Gordon. When that is what that show focused on, I thought the show worked. The problem with Gotham is they gave into the temptation to make it a Batman series. And more you found that the show shifted focus away from the Jim Gordon character and onto little prepubescent Bruce Wayne. And the whole show was one big long, ooh, guys, look at this foreshadowing. This little kid becomes Batman. Ooh. And that's what the whole show was. The whole show kind of became, not the whole show, but a good amount of the focus of that show kind of became focused on that. And that's why, for me, that Gotham series was 50-50 at best. It was hit and miss at best. There'd be some episodes that focused on Jim Gordon that I thought were great. Then a lot of episodes that focused completely on the rogues gallery, traditional rogues gallery of Batman. Look, everybody, it's Poison Ivy. Look, everybody, he becomes Penguin. Oh, look, everybody, there's Joker. You know, and oh, again, this kid, look, he's wearing a black mask. Oh my God, did you know he becomes Batman? When it did that, the show felt desperate and it would lose me at a lot of places. So what about this idea then of kind of taking that premise again, but putting it in the world of this new Matt Reeves Batman? I'll tell you, I find the prospects exciting. And the reason I find the prospects exciting is specifically because I think the premise is a good idea. I thought the premise of what Gotham was supposed to be was an interesting idea. I look at Gotham without the look being completely dominated by Batman. Now, from what I understand, it looks like this show that they're going to do will happen in the age of Batman. It won't be before Batman, but it just won't focus on Batman. It's going to focus on the actual police of Gotham. Now, it's also important to point out this, that there's nothing in the reports that I've seen that specifically say that Jeffrey Wright will be a part of this show. I think a lot of people are assuming Jeffrey Wright will be a part of the show, and it's understandable why you would think that, because if he's Gordon and it's about the Gotham City Police, you'd think Gordon's going to be in there, but they haven't said that officially. I'll be more excited when I find out, and if we find out that Jeffrey Wright will be a part of this series. But again, because of the fact that I like the premise of the Fox Gotham series, I'm hoping that HBO Max will learn from the mistakes of that Gotham series and say, you know what, if we're going to make a series about the Gotham City Police trying to deal with organized crime in Gotham, let's actually focus on that and not put the focus every single episode of some different member of Batman's rogues gallery. It's okay to incorporate one or two of them in maybe once in a while. I think that would be fine. But make sure the center of the show is, if not Gordon himself with Jeffrey Wright, then keep the focus of the show on the Gotham City Police dealing with organized crime. You make this a crime drama, I think you got something really special here. Now listen, I'll tell you what else. I'm going to tell you why you should be excited about this. And here's why you should be excited about this. It's not necessarily that it's going to happen in Matt Reeves' Batman universe, although that's exciting. The reason to be excited is not necessarily because Matt Reeves is going to be one of the executive producers. That's exciting. I'm going to tell you right now, here's the main reason why you and me should be excited about this notion of this show at this time. And here's why. Here's why you should be excited. This is also coming to us from the Variety Report. And the Variety Report says the following. Let me see if I can get this up here properly. There we go. The Variety Report says the following. Terence Winter, who's going to be the showrunner of this show, he's going to be the writer and also an executive producer. He's going to be the showrunner. Terence Winter previously served as a writer and executive producer and director on the landmark, one of the greatest television shows of all time, HBO series, The Sopranos. He earned 12 Emmy nominations for his time on the show, winning 4. He then went on to create the HBO series Boardwalk Empire, which I know it's not the popular opinion. I like Boardwalk Empire even more than I like Sopranos. That's no shade on Sopranos. I love Sopranos, but that's how much I like Boardwalk Empire. And he created HBO's Vinyl, serving as showrunner and executive producer on both shows. On the film side, Terence Winter received an Oscar nomination for writing the screenplay for Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street. Okay, wrap your heads around this. The guy who is going to be the showrunner of this new Gotham City based in this Matt Reeves Batman universe show, the guy who's going to run this show, is the guy who was a writer, executive producer, and director on The Sopranos. He created and was showrunner on Boardwalk Empire. He got an Oscar nomination for writing The Wolf of Wall Street. Are you effing kidding me? Are you effing kidding me? This is tremendous. Look, I like the idea of a show being based in Matt Reeves' new Batman universe. I like the idea of Matt Reeves being an executive producer on it. This is all good. But if you're looking for the real diamond here to really be excited about this, oh, yeah, the guy behind, Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, wrote the screenplay for Wolf of Wall Street. No big deal, That is something to be stoked about. And so if you're kind of on the fence a little bit about, I don't know, man, they tried doing the Gotham thing before in Fox. But if you're a little bit on the fence and you're looking for something to kind of get you more excited, that's something to be excited about. I think this bodes very, very well for this show. But listen, this also brings up what I wanted to make the topic of today's question of the day. I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about them doing the show in general? Is it a good idea, or is it a retread maybe of the Gotham idea? And I put this up just before the show started. And right now, a little over, about almost 3,500 of you guys have responded so far. And I asked the question of the day. Do you like the idea of HBO Max doing a Matt Reeves Batman Universe spinoff show based on Gotham? Or, as I click the read more button, or does it feel too much like the recently ended Gotham show on Fox? We talk about this more in the show. And like I said, guys, about 3,400 of you guys have responded already. And it is as close as it gets. Right now, 49% of you guys are saying, yes, we like the idea. 51% of you right now are saying, you know what? No, not really. It's been done before. It's been done before. Now, by the way, if you guys are wondering where you can answer this, it's put up in the community tab of my YouTube channel. Keep up to date with what's going on my YouTube channel, by the way, guys, by making sure you click that subscribe button, become a subscriber to my channel. But that's where you can vote. That's going to be up there for a while. Again, it is as tight as it can be. Actually, I wonder what happens if I refresh the page. If I refresh the page, has the number changed? Well, now it's 3,600 of you guys have, another 200 of you guys have voted, but it's still 49% to 51%. It is tight. It is close. As for me, once again, guys, I choose to be pretty excited about this, mainly because of Winter being involved. I mean, I think that just speaks volumes to it. I'm excited about it. What do you guys think about all this? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Pelican Mike. And Pelican Mike writes, AMC has just reached an agreement that will help them, by the way, we're talking about AMC the movie theaters, not AMC the television channel, that will help them stay afloat. The deal involves renegotiating their debt, which will help clean up their balance sheets and hopefully allow them to avoid bankruptcy and stay in business through 2021. They're not out of the woods yet, and the effect of the pandemic are constantly evolving. But what do you make of this news? Could this be enough for AMC to weather this storm? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, one of the big pieces of drama going on in the movie world the last number of months has been the drama specifically about AMC Theaters. Now, AMC Theaters, for those you may not know, is the largest theatrical exhibition company in the world. The movie studios need AMC to show their movies, to make all the big box office dollars, all that kind of stuff. AMC Theaters, of course, got itself into $5 billion in debt, doing a whole, and it was very intelligently done. They were building up their AMC A-List program that started to turn a profit. They bought a whole bunch of new theaters. They also were renovating a ton of their theaters to give them the prime experience with leather recliners and new projectors and all that kind of stuff to give you and me, the moviegoer, the best possible experience. But unfortunately, when they hit that $5 billion in debt and they finished all their stuff, the pandemic hit, theaters closed, and AMC was in a lot of trouble. So much trouble that it started to become a little bit of a question mark as to whether they were even going to be open again. Now, recently, there was a story came out that they were able to secure a new line of credit that was going to keep them going. It was going to make sure they were going to be able to open their theaters again, but they didn't know if they were going to be able to last long. Well, now, news broke yesterday that they have restructured, they've reached agreements to restructure a bunch of their debt that is going to make sure that at the very minimum, they're going to be able to survive well into 2021 whenever the theaters open back up. Even if Tenet doesn't open on time on August 12th, they're going to be able to last well into what they're saying is going to be the spring. These details come to us from Deadline, I believe. And Deadline writes the following. AMC Entertainment on Friday announced a sweeping restructuring that will bring in $300 million in fresh capital, reduce their debt by as much as $630 million, and lower their cash interest expenses by up to $200 million. The debt restructuring agreement, anticipated by Deadline on Thursday, will keep the chain running through spring in 2021, even in a worst case scenario of all theaters being closed. A person familiar with this situation said, although the company is currently planning to reopen on July 30th. So yes, as of right now, AMC Theaters is still planning on opening on July 30th. Whether or not they can, we'll have to wait and see. Whether or not they open in all theaters everywhere, don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Whether or not they decide to open certain amounts of their theaters, even if they can't open them everywhere, or whether they're going to keep all of them shut until they can open all of them, we'll have to wait and see. But this is significant news for the movie industry, because this tells studios, okay, when we're ready to start putting our movies out in theaters again, AMC Theaters is going to be there. That is a huge sigh of relief to movie studios, because they need the money that AMC brings in. They absolutely do. They're screwed if AMC isn't there. They're absolutely screwed. And of course, AMC has been screwed as well. So this is good news for now. Now, again, like the person who sent in the question highlighted, this does not mean that AMC is out of the woods yet. They're not out of the woods. They're still in trouble. But this new restructuring, compounded with the line of credit they got about a month ago, this guarantees that when movies do come back, they are going to be able to open, and they're at least going to be able to ride this into 2021, and hopefully by then have a positive enough financial outlook that they're going to be able to go well beyond that. But at least for now, the immediate news is that one of the biggest pieces of drama in the world of movies and the movie industry is AMC about to go under. It looks like they've been able to avoid that terrible situation, at least postpone it. And we won't have to worry about this until we get into 2021 at the very earliest. So what will happen then? Who knows? What do you guys think? Do you think that, yes, as long as they can last into 2021 and we can get them back to when the movie industry is up and running again at full speed, they're going to be fine? Do you think this is just delaying the inevitable and they're about to go out regardless? What do you guys think about all this? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all of that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on to your live questions. And by the way, how do you get on a live question? You can send in a live question now or anytime. 24/7. If you send in a live question when we're not live, your question will get answered in the next episode. But here's how you send in a question. Simply go to the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video, or you can just go there manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your question on the show, and you're going to be supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us involved with the YouTube channel, thank you guys very much for your support. Now, I am going to take a couple of minute break here so I can refill my drink, rest the vocal cords, stretch my legs a little bit. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand you guys off to get the questions started into the good hands, into the safe hands of my good friend, John from Earth 2. John from Earth 2, get us started on the live questions. Well, hey there, guys. John from Earth 2 here. And before we jump into the questions, it is a time to celebrate, because of those of us in this country, because we as citizens were all smart, did the right things, took precautions, wore our masks, because we have wise political leaders, we all took very seriously the problem of the COVID-19 pandemic and we kicked its ass. And because we did such a great job, don't forget, guys, this week, July 17th, this week, Christopher Nolan's Tenet opens in theaters. Oh, can you imagine how embarrassing it would have been if we didn't take this thing seriously and they had to bump the release of Tenet? That would have sucked. But thankfully, we've got Tenet opening this week. I trust you guys in Earth 1 did the exact same smart things. Anyway, let's get on to the questions that you guys have sent in from Earth 1. We're going to start things off here with Ethan Holgate, who writes, one of two. Hi, John. An Omniplex cinema with reclined seats opened back up in my town area in Ireland. That's great. They were showing the first Conjuring movie. I'd never seen it. Me being a big Jurassic World, or probably James Wan fan, that was one of his movies I hadn't seen yet. So in a way, I saw a new movie. Well, I mean, hey, that's great. He goes on to say in part 2, but yeah, really enjoyed it. I'll watch the second one soon. I think I like Insidious more than Conjuring, though. Also, do you plan to watch the new Netflix fantasy action movie based on the graphic novel starring Charlize Theron called The Old Guard? I think it looks good. Well, of course, talked about that a little bit earlier in the show. And, you know, we had a couple like this, like just a little while ago. We had that Chris Hemsworth, I can't remember the name of it, where he's the one military dude. Frankly, I didn't think that movie was very good. Even though it had some great action, I didn't think the movie overall was very good. But like mentioned earlier, really did enjoy Old Guard. It was very, very pleasantly surprised. Because, you know, I don't have a lot of hope when it comes to Netflix original movies. There are a couple of diamonds in the rough that are really great, you know, Irishman and stuff like that. But I'm also quite often disappointed by Netflix original movies. This one was actually quite enjoyable. I enjoyed it. And yeah, I personally prefer Conjuring over Insidious. There's something about that film that always stuck very, very well with me. So it works for me on that limit. But, you know, again, we're talking about making lemonade out of the lemons that this horrible situation has given us. And one of those little bits of lemonade is that you get to watch movies you've never seen before, maybe on the big screen for the first time ever. And I'm glad you're able to take advantage of that, Ethan. All right, let's go to the next one. Abdul Al-Gatman writes, "Hi, John. What happened to the Theodore Roosevelt biopic Paramount was making? A few years ago, we heard that Scorsese and Dicaprio were attached. I love biopics, and Scorsese is my favorite filmmaker," speaking of The Irishman. "So I was really excited. Do you think it will still happen?" Well, you know what's funny? So yeah, back in like 2017, 2018, Leonardo Dicaprio, Martin Scorsese were going to be working. I think Dicaprio was going to produce a Theodore Roosevelt biopic. For whatever reason, in the past, 10 plus years, Leo DiCaprio's really been into biopics. Actually, longer than 10 years now, but he digs his biopics. So they were going to be working on that, but then basically nothing happened. Now, Martin Scorsese, he's got a couple of projects coming up. Of course, he's working on another one he's doing with Leonardo DiCaprio, Killing of the Flower Moon or something along those lines, a $200 million period piece dramatic thing that Apple is going to be paying for, so that's great. Marty Scorsese is either now where he's about to turn 78 years old. Not only does he have this Flowers movie, I think he's got one or two other projects lined up, including a special looking back at SCTV, the big Canadian troupe that had people like John Candy and Eugene Levy and Martin Short and the Bob and Doug McKenzie brothers and things like that. So he's got that to work on as well. Will the Theodore Roosevelt thing then still happen? I know, because I looked at Scorsese's IMDb page recently. I know that Theodore Roosevelt biopic is still listed, but I haven't heard anything. It's literally been a couple of years since I've heard anything new about it. I know just recently it came out that Josh Trank, the director of, it was called Fonzo, and now just recently they renamed it to Capone. He just directed Capone, and of course he did that Fantastic Four movie with Fox. That completely went off the rails, largely through no fault of his own. Anyway, he's working on a script for a Theodore Roosevelt biopic as well, but it's not the same as the one that Scorsese and DiCaprio are working on. So right now, I think it's a coin toss. They say they're still going to do it, but it has been a couple of years since we've seen any movement. So I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I'd say it's probably pretty much a little bit of a coin toss right now. We'll have to wait and see. All right, Luke1234 writes, "If the Hulk was in 51% of the runtime in Thor Ragnarok, would Universal then have the rights to distribute the film, or would it still be Marvel's because it's titled as a Thor film?" Okay, so what Luke1234 is referring to here is the main reason we have not seen a new standalone Hulk movie is because while Marvel does have the rights to make a Hulk movie, Universal has the rights to distribute it. And Disney's not really interested in making a Hulk film with Marvel unless they get to distribute it themselves. They don't want Universal to get a cut of that and be the distributor for the film, so they haven't made one. However, you can still have Hulk in other people's movies, like in Thor Ragnarok, like in the Avengers films, but as long as he's not the standout character and it's not his movie, then Universal, is cut out of the picture. They don't get to step in and be the distributor. If Marvel made a film, though, with Hulk in it, but let's say they did a Hawkeye movie and Hulk was in it, like he was in Thor Ragnarok. But in this movie, Hulk was in 51% of the screen. He's in the majority of the movie. Could Marvel still get away with that and just call it Hawkeye and Universal not get the distributing rights? I'm not 100% sure, but here's my guess. My guess is that Universal would file a complaint and they'd probably submit it to arbitration. And an arbitrator would look at this and probably say, hey, Marvel, Hulk is in the majority of the movie. This is a Hulk movie. It might be a Hulk and Hawkeye movie. Granted, Hulk has a lot less screen time in Thor Ragnarok than Thor does. He's not in 51% of the screen time. But if he was in 51%, if Universal could make an argument to a court that, hey, look, he's in the majority of the movie, this is a Hulk movie, then I have a feeling that then Universal, yes, would probably get their hands on those rights. And those rights to distribute the film would go to Universal. And but Marvel knows that, and that's probably why you're not going to see something like that happen. All right, last one for me before we throw it back over to Earth One. Clifton writes, hey, John, greetings from Cape Town. Well, greetings, Clifton. Cape Town, South Africa. I've been watching since the Jedi Council days in the months running up to The Force Awakens. My wife and I always felt the best episodes were with you, Ellis, Harloff, and Tiffany. So excited for Fallen Order 2 and Squadrons. Yeah, those were good times. I very, very much enjoyed working when we would do Jedi Council, like when me and Christian and Harloff, and it was great having Tiffany Smith on there. All three of these people are absolute gems. They're all absolute gems to work with. And I did enjoy those times. Listen, I'm telling you what, Squadrons was such a great surprise to me. I thought I heard about it being developed, but really when the trailer for that game dropped, I lost my mind because I was also totally shocked and totally surprised. Now, you got to understand something about me. My all-time favorite video game is probably World of Warcraft. I probably spent more time playing World of Warcraft than any other video game in my life. But before World of Warcraft, and really running a close second or third, are the games, the original X-Wing game and the original TIE Fighter game. I loved those games. And I played many hours of those games. Another LucasArts title was Day of the Tentacle. If you're not familiar with that game, go look it up. Loads of fun. Anyway, but X-Wing and TIE Fighter were way up there for me, and I enjoyed them an awful lot. So yeah, I am totally stoked for that. Fallen Order 2, yes, but there's something about, there's a nostalgia kick to it as well for me with Squadrons. So I'm very, very stoked for that. So thanks for writing that in. All right, guys, more questions to come, but we're going to throw it back over to Earth One for it. Thanks for allowing me to be here. Thank you so much as I get my microphone turned back on. Thank you so much to Earth 2 John for getting us started on that. And now let's keep things riding here and keep going with your live questions. We're going to go over to Guy Fox, who writes, hey, John, I'm a Google Pixel user. Can I know why I switched from Pixel to Samsung Galaxy? I'm going to guess you mean why I switched from a Google Pixel to a Samsung Galaxy. Yeah, for the longest time, my phone, well, I used to be an iPhone user. I switched over to Android. I prefer Android. I switched over to a Galaxy, to using Android devices. And the phone I had for the longest time was the Galaxy Note 8. I had that phone for a long time. Then I decided to try the Google Pixel 3 XL. And I got to tell you, I loved the phone. I loved it. Particularly its camera. Somebody tell me why more cameras don't do this anymore. The front-facing selfie camera, it also had a wide-angle lens. If a phone needs a wide-angle lens, it's for the selfie thing. I mean, that's the most important place for it, and it had that, and it was great, and a lot of phones today don't have that. Most phones today don't have that. Anyway, I love the phone, but I started having a couple of technical issues with it. Primarily, I was having problems with the Bluetooth. The Bluetooth on that phone was very, very spotty. So I would get into my car and half the time it wouldn't connect to my car's sound system. I'd go into my bathroom because I have like 5 of the rooms in my house have like either a Google Home device or an Alexa Echo, an Amazon Echo in it. And I would go into the bathroom and I like playing stuff through my phone on the thing, and half the time it wouldn't connect. But the big problem was that I have a smart lock on my front door. So my phone is the key to my house. And I had it programmed so if I was out of the house, when I would be walking up to my front door, my phone would automatically communicate with my door lock, and you'd hear, and because my door would unlock, because it would just automatically know I was approaching it. But like 50% of the time it wouldn't work. And I have to sit there for a minute or two just to get it to connect to the Bluetooth and get my door unlocked. And finally, I just realized, I need a phone where the Bluetooth is more reliable. And so the Note 10 had just come out. I picked up the Note 10. Beautiful. I am thinking about the Google Pixel 5, though. I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking about the Google Pixel 5 when it comes out. So we'll have to keep. Also, the OnePlus Nord is coming out. And the reason I'm really excited about that is because they are putting in an ultra-wide lens, selfie lens, which I think is pretty important too. Anyway, sorry, let's keep moving. Let's go a little bit faster than that. Dan Ketchum writes, with cases in Florida going through the roof, I can't believe Disney World is reopening. To me, it seems irresponsible. My father and grandfather got through a Great Depression and World War II, but we can't even suck it up for a few months without movies and parks. Well, I mean, I have I have two different minds on that. One, yeah, cases in Florida are spiking right now. Maybe now's not the best time. But you got to also understand, like, Disney is basically losing tens of millions of dollars a day that park is closed. But more importantly is this. I am of the philosophy, although I may not be right, because I'm no expert, I am personally of the philosophy that if you enforce the proper safety precautions, you can minimize people's risk. You know, I'm a big advocate of that. You know, Ann and I walked by a restaurant last night, and they were requiring everybody who comes in off the street to be wearing a mask. They required people use hand sanitizer when they came in, and they had their tables all separated in the outdoor patio. You could see they had all the tables separated by a good 6 feet. And I felt like, okay, this, I believe, is responsible. If you act this way, you will minimize the risk. You're not going to eliminate it, but you're minimizing the risk. And I believe if people just act with common sense, and they had rules when you're not at your table, if you're getting up and walking around, whatever, you got to have your mask on. If they are, and I don't know what the rules are they're implementing at Disney World, but my basic feeling is if you have the right precautions in place, I believe you can go out. The problem is a lot of people just act like morons. So I don't know. I might be wrong. And it does. Listen, I got to agree with everything spiking in Florida right now. It does feel a little odd to reopen right now, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes, Dan. All right. Next up, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, breaking news. This be covered at the top of the next open mic, but did you see that Matt Reeves set to develop a Batman spinoff set in the same universe as his movies for HBO Max? Jeffrey Wright looks to return as Gordon. Now, this is badass. Now, it should be, again, as we did talk about this as a main issue. Remember, there is no official word that says Jeffrey Wright will be involved. He very well could be. It would make sense that he would be. But as of right now, there's no official word that Jeffrey Wright will be in this show or be playing Commissioner Gordon in the show. One can hope, though. All right, Marie Seifring writes, hey, John, with news that Jurassic Park, Dominion, and Uncharted have resumed production in places like the UK and Germany, do you think we will see a flood of other film productions restart soon at locations outside of the US? Thank you. Yes, I do. You know, because we also have like Avatar 2 has resumed shooting in New Zealand. There are many countries around the world who have done the right things and kicked the pandemic's ass. And so those places are, I mean, it's UK is still questionable, but there are several countries around the world where I guarantee you studios right now that have been delaying production, a lot of stuff, are looking at New Zealand, other places as well. Canada, I know, is a place a lot of places are looking at to go and start resuming production there. It's something they're going to have to do. So yes, Marie, I absolutely believe that you're going to see in the next month or two, we're going to hear about productions moving out of where they were going to shoot in the US and probably to some other countries where they might even build their own sound studio. Who knows? To go and start shooting there. I think you're going to see that. Unless we start seeing drops here in the United States, which one can hope for, I think you're going to see that happen a lot. All right, Marie Seifring also writes, Tom Hanks' Greyhound is now available on Apple TV+. I hope you and Ann get to enjoy it soon. Well, we did. We watched it the morning it came out. Ann's going to love anything with Tom Hanks in it just because Tom Hanks is in it. And Tom Hanks is great, but like I said earlier in the show, I got to admit, I wasn't a big fan of the movie. Because to me, it wasn't much of a movie. It was really one long action sequence. And it was a good long action sequence, but I felt like there just wasn't a story there. Orange Hand writes, have you ever played any of the Myst? Oh, I did back in the day, like back in the mid 90s. Any of the Myst video games. They're supposed to be a film/TV adaptation, but nothing concrete as of yet. I don't think I've heard anything about a possible TV or movie adaptation. But man, I remember that game. I remember at the time when and I think it originally came out for Apple. It was one of the few games that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Myst was originally released for Apple computers, which was rare and even more rare today. But I remember it was like at the time, like gorgeous. For its era and for its time, it was absolutely gorgeous. All right, Diego Manguino, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name, dude, writes, Hola, John. Just watched Empire. I like Empire of the Sun for the first time, and I loved it. The ending had me in tears. Also, it was a lot of fun watching a 13-year-old Christian Bale. He was great. What do you think of the movie overall and compared to other Spielberg films? Well, the thing about Spielberg films is, unlike a lot of directors, like even great directors, Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, like a lot of directors today, all their films have their own unique feel to them, right? Like you can tell when you're watching a Quentin Tarantino movie. You can tell when you're watching a Christopher Nolan movie. The thing about Spielberg, what makes him, I believe, the greatest filmmaker of all time, is you could watch 8 different Spielberg movies and they're all completely different feeling movies, right? So it's difficult to compare any one film. And John Malkovich, I believe, was also in Empire of the Sun. It's got kind of a Life is Beautiful feel to it. If you guys have seen the Roberto Benigni masterpiece, Life is Beautiful, where, you know, a kid basically living in wartime prison and trying to make the best of life. You know, there's something special about that. I really like that movie. Diego, thank you for bringing it up, because not a lot of people bring up Empire of the Sun. Good on you for that. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, I don't think Ridley Scott's Robin Hood was all that bad, even if it wasn't great. It introduced me to Oscar Isaac and Leigh Sedell. It had a good Canadian kid, Adam Doyle from Great Big Sea. I love Great Big Sea. And it's a hell of a lot better than Taron Egerton's monstrosity. You know what? I appreciate that. The great thing about movies is it's all subjective and we all have our individual feelings with it. I hated that Robin Hood movie. And that hurts me to say, because I love Ridley Scott. Russell Crowe's my favorite performer. I was all excited about it. The mythology of Robin Hood is a great tale and story. I hated that movie. Doesn't matter who was in it. I hated that movie. The Taron Egerton film, not very good either. I'm not sure how I compare the two to each other, but you're not wrong. Neither of them great. But I'm glad you liked the Robin Hood movie more than I did. I'm glad that you did. I get a lot of joy knowing that people liked movies, even if they're movies that I didn't like. And so that's great. But yeah, man, I got to tell you, I did not like that movie. All right, Dave's not here. Tips $20. Thank you so much for tipping the channel that much. If there's a question here, we'll segment it out over the next couple of weeks and put it up as its own video on my YouTube channel. Can you give a Christmas in July present to your Whovian fans? I'm guessing that's what Doctor Who fans call themselves, and watch the Christmas Carol episode of Doctor Who, and then give us a report in a video. In my opinion, it's a much better introduction to the Doctor, even though Heaven Sent is brilliant. Thank you very much for all that you do. You know what? I will definitely not make a video about it. Just you know, I don't do videos of old properties or things like that. But I don't watch Doctor Who. I don't dislike Doctor Who. I just don't watch it. That's all. And I've had a bunch of people telling me that I need to see this episode of Doctor Who called Heaven Sent. Some people are saying it might not be the best one to make your first Doctor Who viewing, whatever. I at some point, I am planning to sit down and watch an episode or two of Doctor Who, because so many people in my family and so many people who watch this show love Doctor Who. So at some point, I got to check it out. And I'll tell you what, I've had a few people, Dave, mention to me the Christmas Carol episode. I've had a few people mention the Christmas Carol episode specifically. So maybe I will start off with that one. I will keep you guys appraised and updated as to when I do finally get around checking out, but I will at some point. I won't make its own individual video about it, but I'll let you guys know on the show when I do get around to doing that. So thank you for your continued encouragement to check out Doctor Who. I will try to get around to that soon. Thanks a lot for that, Dave. All right, next up, Optimus Prime Rib writes, I love the name. Maybe it's just me, but the term new normal terrifies me. Normal implies that it's going to be an everyday thing going forward. I'm hoping that it's just a period of abnormality. Going out and seeing everyone's face covered up all the time is depressing. I don't know. I honestly don't mind. I don't mind at all. I saw a great response. Some high-profile person wrote, I put on a mask and I immediately had trouble breathing. I can't stand this thing. And then somebody responded with, the surgeon who did the 7-hour reconstructive surgery on my knee says it's not a problem that you're a drama queen. Anyway, I don't mind seeing people wearing masks. I mean, a lot of Asian countries, you see them do it all the time and they do pretty well. But I think when some people like myself say the new normal, I think it's going to be the new normal for a period of time, right? Like when theaters reopen, there's going to be a period of what normal is when like movie theaters reopen. You know, people wearing face masks, separated seating, limited show times, all that kind of stuff. That will be the new normal for a while. But I don't think it's going to be normal for like 3 years from now. You know what I'm saying? I think there's going to be a new normal when first things open up. It's like, this is what normal is for a little bit. But I think at some point then we get it all behind us and things will relatively get back to general normality, I would guess. But who knows, man? We'll have to wait and see. First things first. Let's do the right things now and get this damn thing behind us, shall we? Let's get first things first. Thanks for writing that in, Optimus. All right, Abdi Adawi writes, please watch Death Note, the anime series. Many people say it's the best. Plot twists and intensity is on another level. The mind games and the detective work is abnormal in a good way. I will assure you, you will love it. Only 37 episodes and 25 minutes per episode. Yeah, that's a big commitment, man. That's a huge commitment. I will tell you this. Like, I was so disappointed with the Death Note Netflix movie. I was so disappointed that even though you had Willem Dafoe, like as one of the voice was great and all that kind of stuff. The character design was wonderful. But I thought the movie was quite poor, which is unfortunate. But one of the great things about binging, especially when it's short stuff, like 25-minute episodes, suddenly you can get through a lot. Like I was surprised how fast I got through The Last Airbender. For those of you who don't know, I recently did a binge of Last Airbender, and I got through all 3 seasons really, really fast because they're short episodes, whatever. And I quite enjoyed it. But yeah, I was very, very disappointed by that movie, dude. I was so disappointed with that movie. I think a lot of people were. All right, Jake C. writes, what is the biggest, most blatant Star Wars ripoff you've ever seen? For me, it might be the Ice Pirates. Look, Ice Pirates, this is going back a long time. Ice Pirates was definitely a response to Star Wars. It was trying to take advantage of a space adventure kind of movie, which there wasn't a lot of at the time. But when you look at the story of Ice Pirates, it's not all that similar. Actually, I'm going to say that the biggest ripoff to Star Wars I ever saw doesn't even look like a Star Wars movie. It was Aragon. It was based on the books about the dragons, and then they made the first movie. It was supposed to be a franchise. Unfortunately, the movie was bad and it kind of flopped, so they never did make the second one. I think John Malkovich was in it. I think Jeremy Irons was in it. Anyway, even though it was like a sword and sandal and dragon kind of movie, that to me was a blatant Star Wars ripoff. Beat for beat. You had your Obi-Wan character, you had your Luke character, you had your Vader character, and kind of beat for beat, the hero's journey was very, very similar to Star Wars, the original New Hope movie. And so I'm going to say to me, what appears to be the biggest Star Wars ripoff I've ever seen is that Aragon movie. That's what I'll go with. Let's see here. Glenn Tracy writes, us fans love to make our theories after movies come out. The theory that Thanos made his move after Odin died because he feared him falls nicely in the MCU timeline. What do you think would have happened if Thanos acted the fool with Odin still alive? Well, listen, for those of you who watch my show, you guys know that was a theory of mine before Infinity War came out. Like before Infinity War came out, a lot of people, including myself, had the theory, is it a coincidence that Odin's gone and now Thanos makes his big move? And a lot of people, including me, before Infinity War ever came out, were talking about this theory that I think maybe it's possible that Thanos decided to wait until the Allfather died. Because Odin the Allfather was not somebody to be trifled with. So I don't know. I've never heard, if I ever get a chance to speak to Kevin Feige again in an interview setting, one of the first questions I want to ask him is, hey, was it a coincidence that Thanos ultimately really made his move once Odin died, or was that no coincidence? Maybe somebody in the MCU has answered that question already, and I haven't heard that, but that was kind of a partial theory of mine before Infinity War came out. So I'm with you on it. I can get it behind that. Isaac Beebe writes, the listing for Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Loki are now up on Disney+. Oh, I did not realize that. Does that mean that proper trailers are imminent with Comic-Con at home just around the corner? It's possible. It's possible. Now, I don't know how involved Marvel, and I mean that literally, I don't know. I don't know how involved Marvel is going to be with Comic-Con at home. That's, basically Comic-Con is happening, but online, much like DC is doing their own online convention thing. I don't know how involved they're going to be in that. I would say this though, Isaac, if they are now listing Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Loki on Disney Plus, the app, then my guess would be at least Falcon and Winter Soldier. I don't know when Loki is going to come out, but Falcon and Winter Soldier, I would guess, yeah, then we are probably getting really close, maybe even within weeks of getting official trailers for those. I mean, we've had looks at it before, but like here's the first official trailer for this. We could be getting really close. Let's keep our eyes open for that. All right, Isaac writes, Back to the Future Part 2 holds a very special place in my heart because of the date they travel to in the future is October 21st, 2015, which was not only my 18th birthday, oh, that's fun, was not only my 18th birthday, but my final day of high school. That is special. That your 18th birthday also fell on your final day of high school. That's pretty cool. My friend and I dressed up as Marty and Doc, but when I was watching it the other day, I noticed two giant plot holes. In 2015, old Biff steals the sports almanac and the time travel machine and takes it back to 1955 to give it to his younger self. But as soon as he does that, he changes the future. So the 2015 he returns to would be a different 2015, not the 2015 that Marty and Doc were in. Also, the time circuits have three readouts, where you're going, where you are, and where you were. So the where you were should have shown November 12th, 1955, thus eliminating the need for Marty to interrogate rich alternate 1985 Biff and to find out when and where he traveled to give his younger self the book, but neither Marty nor Doc picked up on that before traveling back from 1985 to 2015. Oh, and another thing, there is no way in hell that the sports almanac was big enough to have 50 years of sports results. That book would have had like 100,000 pages or something. Oh, I just keep looking to see if they're on that. Oh, and one more thing. When the DeLorean got struck by lightning and was sent back to 1885, that should not have worked because in the first film, the DeLorean needed to be traveling at 88 miles combined with the lightning strike at the clock tower to work. Okay, there's a lot there to unpack, Isaac, and thanks for sending that. Clearly somebody who's very passionate about Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2. I will say this at first. I am not as big of a fan of Back to the Future 2 or 3 as I am about the first Back to the Future. Like, when a lot of people talk about Back to the Future being one of their favorite film franchises, I don't join in that conversation. I do join in the conversation of Back to the Future, the original film being one of the all-time classics, but I'm not as big of a fan as 2 and 3 as a lot of other people. Let's just say that. But to the big meat of what you're talking about, this is one of the reasons why I do not like time travel in movies and TV shows. It creates hordes of logic problems. The main reason I don't like, in general, there are exceptions. Back to the Future, the original, Star Trek, Voyage Home. There are exceptions. Absolutely. There are movies and TV shows that use time travel that I do enjoy. Don't get me wrong. But for the most part, the main reason I don't like time travel in movies and TV show is because it is a absolute bottom of the barrel, lazy writer's plot device. Because there is literally no problem in any story that can't be solved with time travel. Time travel can solve any problem in a story. A movie starts off where a guy accidentally has a car accident and runs into a kid who dies, and that kid's father is a crime lord who now is going to hunt down this guy and his family. That's the setting of that movie. Guess what? Solved instantly with time travel. Woo! Better go back in time and make sure I don't hit that car. So every movie ever made, the problem in every movie can be solved with time travel. That's why I believe time travel is the bottom of the barrel, laziest of the lazy plot devices in any movie. There are exceptions, but generally speaking. But the second problem is that it creates hordes of logic holes and logic problems. Like, even the writers for Avengers Endgame, finally, did you guys remember when we talked about this quote on our show a couple of months ago? Even the writers for Avengers Endgame at some point just went, look, yeah, we know there are some logic problems. And, and we were fine because the movie delivered a great experience, and that's all that matters. But and you're just pointing them out, Isaac. Time travel can introduce hordes and hordes of logic problems that are very hard to get around. So I think those are great observations, Isaac. I think those are tremendous observations. So maybe those other people who are, aficionados of the Back to the Future franchise, particular films 2 and 3, may want to jump in the comments and give Isaac some thoughts on that as well, if you're fellow fans of that. Thanks for writing that in, Isaac. Appreciate that, man. And I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. All right. Koa1708 writes, do top actors/actresses still have to go through auditions and get rejections just like any other working people in the business? Kind of hard to imagine somebody like a Tom Hanks getting a call telling him that he didn't get the part. The answer to that question is yes and no. If you are a top level star, a Tom Hanks, a Denzel Washington, a Russell Crowe, something along those lines, a Leonardo DiCaprio. If you are a top line star, then no, you don't do the traditional go sit in the waiting room with 8 other actors and then get, okay, Mr. Hanks, you can come in now. And then Tom Hanks goes in the room and does his read. No, they don't have to go through that. Russell Crowe doesn't even read for parts anymore. He doesn't even read for parts. Like, you come and you offer Russell Crowe a movie. And if he wants it, he'll accept it. If not, whatever. But he doesn't audition for roles. He doesn't even go and read for roles. You either make him an offer and he takes and leaves it, or don't bother approaching him. And he can do that. Tom Hanks is probably the same. But what does still happen, even with some of the top list stars, is if there's a major film project coming, say by a Tarantino, a Steven Spielberg, a Christopher Nolan, where there's a big role that a lot of people want, including some big top line talent want that role. They don't go in and audition for it, but their agents will submit them for those roles. And then maybe, they go through, the studios go through and they have to think about it with the director and the producers, and they have to think about it and they come down to it, and then they give the role to one of the actors. But they don't go in and do the traditional, I'm reading for my part. I'm sure it happens from time to time, but for the most part, no. People like Tom Hanks, Denzel Washington, Brad Pitt don't have to go in and audition for roles like 99% of other actors do. So it is a little bit different for them, Cola. All right, thanks for writing that in, man. Let's see here. Huey Mungus writes, explain this, John. On Disney Plus, X-Men Days of Future Past contains Wolverine's we just talked about this in the show. Contains Wolverine's uncensored ass as well as an F-bomb. Fine, Disney wants to protect their sterile, family-friendly corporate image, but if so, can't they demonstrate some consistency? The logic doesn't add up. Again, just to bring this up, just quickly, I think there's one of 4 reasons. It could be any of these. It could be a combination of a couple of them. Again, number 1, they saw Splash as a purely family film, and therefore all they had to do was cover the ass. 2, maybe they thought taking out some of those harder edge elements in Days of Future Past would have fundamentally changed an element of the film, whereas covering Daryl Hannah's ass doesn't change anything about Splash. 3, the Splash situation made them change their mind about how they approach that. Or 4, it could have been a marketing gimmick. Anyway, those are the things. Go back to the earlier part of the show. We discuss it there. But again, yeah, on its surface, man, it raises big questions. I never thought they would have done it, but they did. And so it could be any of those things. Thanks for writing that in, Huey. All right. Django19 writes, 1 of 2. I finished The Last of Us 2 a week ago and I loved it. I loved it too. Getting ready for my second playthrough. Only minor nitpick, which other people have also brought up, is the pacing. I've heard that even people who love the story have mentioned pacing a little bit. What do you think? Maybe playing the game over just watching it makes it feel that way. I respect that some people didn't like it, but what I don't get is how some people just judge the game and don't give it a chance anymore after the big event in the beginning. I was devastated by it, but it made the story more powerful and emotional for me. Yeah, listen, I've said this before. I stand by this. I respect that there are people who've watched this or played it and it didn't work for them. I respect that. It's all subjective. Nothing wrong with that. But for my money, it is the single boldest, best, deepest story execution of any video game in history. Last of Us 2 story, the story of Last of Us 2 is nothing short of an absolute masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece. Now, I always throw this in there. I've only watched the 12-hour story run of the game. So that includes all the cutscenes and all the gameplay that has story elements to it. So it's about 12 hours long. I've only watched it. I didn't play through the game yet. I bought the game. I'm going to play it at some point. So I didn't feel the pacing issues nearly as much. But maybe if once I start playing the game, maybe I'll feel some of the pacing issues a little bit. And maybe that, because I've heard that from several people. I have. But as far as the pure story goes, and I don't want to give any spoilers away here, I thought it was jaw-dropping, absolute, the best example of narrative storytelling there has ever been in the video game medium. There's never been anything close to it. It's simply the best thing I've ever seen. Not everybody agrees, and I respect that. But for my money, it's absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, glad you enjoyed it, Django. All right, next up, Yumi writes, hey, John, did you have a chance to check out Netflix's new comic book adaptation, The Old Guard? Again, we spoke about that a little bit earlier in the show. Watched the movie today with my boyfriend, and we both really enjoyed it. However, what most stood out to me was the remarkable blend of ethnicities in the cast and behind the camera. Also, it was refreshing to see a happy queer couple with Joe and Nikki. They did a great job showing their love, but at the same time making them more than just the quote-unquote gay characters. What are your thoughts? I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best movie of the year or anything like that, but I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit like Underworld, where the mythology they set up is a little bit better than the actual execution of the movie, but I still really did enjoy the execution of the movie. And there's a scene with that couple when they're being held prisoner and the one guy gives a speech about what this other man means to him that was absolutely beautiful. I didn't care if it was a gay couple, straight couple, wouldn't have mattered. The speech was amazing, and I won't give it away. But if you get a chance to check it out, you should. I thought Old Guard, Charlize Theron was great. The whole cast was great. I enjoyed it very much. Great mythology. I had a very good time with it, and I really do hope they make another one soon. I hope it does well enough for Netflix that they make another one soon. All right, Canadian Singing Posty, our friend, writes in and says, hey, John and crew, welcome back to the John Campea Show tech question. Oh, I love tech questions. Went on your site to look at your mic recommendations as I'm looking to get a mic that gives the best quality for balance and gains for me when I do my singing videos in the van and at home. What do you recommend? Well, I mean, singing in the van, I actually have, unfortunately, I've got it downstairs right now. I don't have it on me. For when you're in your van, what you're going to want to get is there's a great USB-C microphone that plugs right into your phone. I believe it's by Saramonic. And I again, you know what? I'll try to remember to have it upstairs for next time. I have it downstairs right now, so I can't run down and get it. But basically, it's a really nice little mic that plugs into your USB-C and points the mic. If you're holding your cam like this, you plug it in and points the mic at you. And I've used it a little bit for some various things, and it's really nice. So if you're just looking for something quick, mobile, in your pocket, pop it in when you're doing thing in your car. I'm going to see if I can find it, but look up Saramonic USB-C phone mic, and you should be able to find it. I've used that. It works very well for me. For doing stuff at home, if you want to look on the upper end range, again, the mics I recommend, I love my Rode Procaster. I love this microphone. Another very, very, very popular one with people who have home studios and whatever is the Shure S7MB. I believe that's the lettering, S7MB. That's very, very popular. That's the one like Joe Rogan used, but a lot of vocalists use that one as well. You need to get a preamp for it to make sure you give it enough boost. Another one is the, what's the name of the company? It's the R20. I'm forgetting that, but you look, microphone R20. That's a very popular one with a lot of vocalists as well. If you want to go cheaper, you can get some USB mics. Like, again, the old standard, the Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti USB mic is not a bad option if you just want a cheap, simple, no muss, no fuss kind of home microphone setup thing. So there's a couple of recommendations for you. I hope you find something that works well for you, Canadian Postie, and keep singing, man. Keep singing. All right. The Feeling Old segment writes, movies turning 10 this week. Inception, I know. And The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which I didn't mind. That's the Nick Cage movie. I also did not mind it. It's not great, but I also didn't mind it, which I didn't mind. And turning 20, holy F-bomb, X-Men. Yeah, the X-Men movie. The movie that ushered in the modern age of the golden age of comic book movies. You listen to all the producers in Hollywood, they will tell you the only reason that we are where we're at today with the dominance of the comic book genre in media is because of the first X-Men movie. They'll all tell you that. Just what an accomplishment. Still the greatest opening of any comic book movie ever. The opening of that X-Men movie with a young Eric in the concentration camp, the greatest opening to any comic book movie ever. I still feel that way. So yeah, man. Whew. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, just found a sorely underrated film, The Mercenary with Franco Nero and Jack Palance. Yeah. Of course, from the original Batman 89 movie. And even if you've never heard of it, you probably know Ennio Morricone's score from the coffin scene in Kill Bill. That is an old one. I saw that one, but a long time ago. It's like I can't remember, it's an Italian or Polish or something kind of dude leads a rebellion against the corrupt Mexican government and blah, 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 blah. Like one of those old, truly spaghetti Western movies. If you get a chance to check it out, you should check that one out. Nice recommendation there, Ryan. All right. John Klobuchar writes, to the man who I've heard this joke so many times. To the man who invented zero, thanks for nothing. Get it? Zero, nothing. Hey, John, I gave you the drum shot, so just be happy for that one. All right, next up, Thomas writes, hey, John, last night I watched one of my favorite movies I have not seen in a while. The movie was Master. Speaking of Russell Crowe, Paul Bettany, Master and Commander, and I could see life for those people was rough for them back in the day. If you lived in that time period, what profession would you do? Oh, if I lived in the era of Master and Commander. By the way, I think that's another movie where the original intention was for them to do a franchise out of it, but they were never able to get it to that point. Whatever. What would I do if I lived in that era? I have no idea. Like, look, I am a child of the technology revolution. So what would I do back then? I don't know. City civil engineering in whatever form it was in that era. I would not be a sailor, though. I will tell you that. I will tell you that. I would not be on one of those ships with Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany. No way. But good on you for me. That is one that not enough people go back and watch. Master and Commander, The End of the World, to the World's, and I can't remember the second part of the title of the movie. Excellent movie with a couple of dynamite performances in it. You should absolutely go and check it out. Well recommended, Thomas. All right, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John, welcome back. Thank you, Ben. I too watched Greyhound and I was greatly disappointed personally. To me, this is exactly what I was saying earlier, only you wrote this in before I started the show, apparently. And I was greatly disappointed personally. To me, it had no narrative and it was just a nonstop action and I didn't care for any of the people. For me, I would give it a 2 out of 5, very disappointed. Yeah, I would say I'm mildly disappointed in it. Again, because there's really no narrative. There is the premise, but then that's all they had. It was just the premise. Guy needs to take these ships across the channel, get the shipment across the channel. And there was really no story after. There's no narrative. It's just one big prolonged action sequence. So by the end of it, I didn't feel really any satisfaction. Great performance by Tom Hanks. It's visually beautiful. It is definitely thrilling in places. But yeah, just for me, didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, Ben. So I wouldn't say I'm super disappointed, but yeah, I was kind of mildly disappointed because I had high hopes for that movie. I had high hopes. All right. The Sock writes, Was waiting to ask Rob, who is not here today. I was waiting to ask Rob this, changing my major to engineering because I want to work for Disney on animatronics, and I'm going to minor in film. I'm not sure whether to do electrical or mechanical engineering. Any insight would be great. Well, neither Rob nor myself are electrical or mechanical engineers. I come from a family of civil engineers. My grandfather, my dad, my brother is even a civil engineer. And I definitely worked a lot of road construction when I was a kid. Anyway, so unfortunately, Sock, I think your aspirations are amazing. I think you have amazing aspirations. Unfortunately, neither Rob, and even if Rob was here, he couldn't answer it. Neither Rob nor myself are really the right person to ask about whether you should go into electrical or mechanical engineering. All I'm going to tell you, dude, is I think those are great dreams. That you want to be like one of the Imagineers, going to electrical. Hey, listen, either one, there's a big field in either one, either in electrical engineering or mechanical engineering. I think those are great aspirations. Good on you, man. And I hope you best of luck in those pursuits. And really, a major in engineering with a minor in film, not a mixture you hear very much of. So I think that sounds great, Sock. All right, next up. Thomas Patterson writes, so happy to see that the show is back. Me too. It's good to be back, man. My girlfriend and I split after 3 years. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. While I still believe in us and think we will eventually find our way back to each other, given that we love each other, it's nice to take a respite from all that more emotional crap. Well, I mean, listen. Somebody was asking me the other day about, a relationship that's ending. And listen, when you're going through it, it sucks. There's no doubt about it. But the stereotypical thing you hear from people of life goes on, it really does. I know it doesn't feel that way when you're in the midst of a breakup. I still remember my first big breakup of my first legitimate, serious relationship. And it was devastating to me, right? I told this story before. It was devastating to me. And I remember talking a little bit to my mom about it. And like my mom is doing the best that she could to kind of be understanding. But at the same time, you could totally see it in her face. This is nothing, kid. Like, she didn't say it out loud, but you got that feeling. It's like, okay, yeah. This, I know you feel terrible, and it does. It feels terrible as you're going through it. But believe me, you're really young. As you get older, you're going to realize this stuff happens and life does go on. Although it never feels like that. And when you're in it, you don't want to hear other people say life goes on, right? That's, even though it's true, it's the last thing you want to hear people say, that life goes on. But it really does. But anyway, whether your relationship gets back together or not, I just hope the best for you, sir, whether it's a brand new, fresh beginning or you get back together later on, whatever. But it is good for the show to be back, and I'm having fun doing today's show. Thanks for being here, man. All right. Dan Ketchum writes, didn't they already do this with Gotham? Yeah, we brought that up, right? But again, I am personally intrigued because I believed in the potential of that Gotham series. I just felt like that series got sidetracked way too much. And they gave into the temptation to make Gotham a Batman light show. Miller light. Gotham, you Batman light in Gotham. And I believe they got sidetracked. If they can get that premise, though, and do it right, and do it within a cinematic universe with the with the Matt Reeves Batman, it could be good. Particularly with Winter, the Sopranos, the Boardwalk Empire, the screenwriter of Wolf of Wall Street. I think there's a lot of potential. I personally think there is a lot of potential. Anyway, next up, thanks for writing that in, Dan. Next up, Steve Pintor writes, sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much, Steve, for supporting the channel on that level. If there is a question in here, we will segment this out and we'll put it up as its own video in a couple of weeks. Keep your eyes open for that. All right, Steve writes, hey, John, just wanted to give a shout out to you. You're the best to ever do it. Oh, thank you so much, man. You've brought a lot of different people to one single community together. You may not be Henry Cavill. I got Henry right behind me here. You may not be Henry Cavill, but you're still super to me. I'm glad to have your show back. Oh, dude, thank you so much. It's always, pardon me, it's always nice when somebody wants to write in just to say something affirming and nice. And I appreciate that, man. And again, thank you for supporting the channel on that level. It's deeply, deeply appreciated. And it is a lot of fun to be back. I mean, I did need those 3 weeks. I did. And I'm thinking maybe once a year I should do that. I'm thinking like once a year I should take like a 3-week hiatus from my daily show and just recharge the batteries, get caught up on other stuff that I'm working on, and it was really good. And I got to spend more time with Anne, which was great. But I'm also excited to be back. So thank you so much, Steve. Thanks for being here and being a part of the community. Thank you so much for the kind words. And again, thanks for the support, man. It's super appreciated, dude. It's always nice to hear. All right. The Halo Brony writes, I looked at Kathleen Kennedy's IMDb page to remind myself on her, you probably mean her great work over the many years. And I use it to make, detractors, I think that's what you meant to say, detractors from her to have more perspective and thinking next time. Not to say how wrong you are, but to say there is more to it. I mean, listen, yeah, I've said it all the time about Kathleen Kennedy. I'm sorry. If you just think, listen, you guys know I have my criticisms of Kathleen Kennedy and the job she has done as the head of Lucasfilm. You guys know I have my criticisms about that. But beyond her involvement as the head of Lucasfilm, when these brain dead nutsacks come out here and say, oh, Kathleen Kennedy sucks, she doesn't know anything about movies, blah, blah, blah. She might be the best producer, arguably. If you listen to Steven Spielberg, he thinks she's the best to ever do it. And he's the greatest filmmaker of all time. When you go through her resume, as a producer, there's nobody has her resume. Her accomplishments in the movie industry are impeccable and untouchable. She is one of the best to ever do it. That doesn't mean you're great at everything, though. And you guys know I have for years, I've had my criticisms about how she has been able to fit into the role as the head of Lucasfilm. I believe she was exposed with a number of the areas that were not her strengths, and that has had repercussions. And you guys know I feel that. But that doesn't take anything away from her truly being a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame, one of the greatest producers ever to do it in movie history. She's simply one of the best. And anybody who denies that simply doesn't know what they're talking about. I mean, it's just that simple. Art is all subjective and all that kind of stuff. But you cannot look at her resume and go, oh yeah, this person doesn't know what they're doing. Okay, now you just sound like an idiot. You want to criticize the job she's done as the head of Lucasfilm? I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Maybe we won't agree on all of our specific criticisms, but I've got some, you guys know for years I've had my criticisms for her as the head of Lucasfilm. But yeah, I mean, her resume, unmatched. It's simply unmatched. And there's a reason why George Lucas handpicked her. And I liked the choice. I liked the choice of her being the head of Lucasfilm, but it didn't work out. Listen, you can make the right choice and have it not work out. You know, go all in with pocket aces pre-flop. That's the right call. That's the right choice. But sometimes you're going to get your aces cracked. And sometimes you're going to lose. It doesn't mean it was the wrong choice. It just means it didn't work out. I thought Kathleen Kennedy, the choice of picking Kathleen Kennedy to be the head of Lucasfilm, I think it was the right choice at the time. But it didn't work out. Okay. But that doesn't take away from how great her resume is and what her place forever in Hollywood history is. Doesn't take away from any of that. Anyway, Halo Brony also writes, one of two. I often feel like I can't express the movies I love and hold above so many others. They accuse me of being a troll, or am I wrong? Or that I just want to be opposite. Because of you, I can post my list here and not be forced to do the walk of shame. Movies plus shows that I love are The Lion King remake. I love The Lion King remake. Not as much as the original, but I love The Lion King remake. The Last Jedi. I like The Last Jedi. Game of Thrones Season 8 I thought was brilliant. So I'm with you that. White House Down. Yeah, I wasn't big on that one, but you do. All right, that's great. Man of Steel. You know I love Man of Steel. Tarzan, the Skarsgård version of it. That's interesting. I wasn't, by the way, Margot Robbie was also in that one. Samuel L. Jackson was in that one. Great cast. I didn't hate the movie. I didn't think it was all that great, but you did great. Dark Knight Rises. I love a lot of people. I listed over The Dark Knight. Avatar. Avatar was nominated for Best Picture. You're not alone in that. Angels and Demons, my number one favorite Tom Hanks movie. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Da Vinci Code movies, but the important thing, Halo Brony, is you love them. That's the most important thing. You love them. They have meaning to you. All film is subjective. All film is subjective. That means, look, movies are emotional. They're experiential events. They're experiential events. And if you watch the movie and it had a certain impact on you, whether it's White House Down or whether it's Angels and Demons, that's the most important thing. And you should never have to explain why you like or dislike a movie. I mean, it's fun to engage in conversation, to point out why I like something, why I didn't. But you never have to explain yourself why you love something. And anybody who thinks you need to explain yourself why you don't love what I love or hate what I hate, ignore them. And if you love those movies, I don't have to feel the same way, but it doesn't mean I can't celebrate the fact that you like them and that you got enjoyment out of them and that you love them. And that's the most important thing, brother. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Halo. Next up, Hitchcock is the GOAT writes, do you think the Toronto market would be able to have a desire to support an NFL team? Yes. Adapting to the effects of COVID, it would seem that the NFL expanding internationally into Canada makes more sense than London. And would you switch from the Patriots? Just being in the city, listen, I would follow a team that was in Toronto. I would definitely follow that team. But you're not going to be my instant favorite team just because you move that team to Toronto. Not automatic. And by the way, I don't, other than the Toronto Maple Leafs, I have no lifelong allegiance to any professional sports team. Again, other than the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Toronto Maple Leafs have sucked my entire lifetime, almost my entire lifetime. I have no lifelong allegiance. I follow coaches. I mean, for the most part, it's not exclusively that, but I mostly follow coaches. You know, I started following the New England Patriots when Coach Bill Parcells went to New England. When Coach Parcells went to New England, that's when I started following the New England Patriots. Now, Buffalo Bills were my favorite team at the time, but then Buffalo gave a big FU to its fans when they benched Doug Flutie, who was their best quarterback, and got them to the playoffs, and swapped him out for this new young kid. And I'm forgetting the name of the quarterback. Why am I forgetting the name of the quarterback? Anyway, and I was like, okay, I'm out on the Buffalo Bills. The ownership clearly just gave the big double effort off his fans. I want nothing more to do with you assholes. And then the New England Patriots became my number one favorite team, and they've been my number one favorite team ever since. Will I still feel that way once Darth Belichick leaves? Maybe not. We'll have to see. I have no lifelong allegiance, but do I think an NFL team could work in Toronto? Absolutely, I do. It's a big enough market. They have the facilities for it. It is a huge sports town, and I think it would work well. I mean, I don't know, but personally, I think it would work well, Hitchcock. Okay, next up, Kara Black writes, thoughts on Washington officially removing the offensive racist nickname. Funny that they decide to change only once their sponsorship and money income is threatened. Yes, for those of you who didn't see this, let me bring up, the last time I checked, it was the top story on ESPN. Let me go over and bring it up. And yes, so here we go. They brought it up on, it's the top story over on ESPN. The Washington Redskins, after years and years and years of people asking them to do it, are changing the name of the team. They will no longer be named as the Washington Redskins. Now, let me say this. I don't believe for a second that the reason they have kept the name Washington Redskins for so long, I don't believe for 1 second that they did it because they wanted to have a racist mascot and they wanted to insult people and they wanted to put people down. I don't believe that for a second. I really do believe that the people in charge felt like they were honoring a people group, that their name meant to be a symbol of honor, that they meant it or they intended it to be a symbol of respect. I'm not saying that I doubt that at all. But I remember this even years and years ago when I still lived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. There's a big native population in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I remember that it would get brought up a lot, and they were very offended by it. The people of the native community were very offended by it. And now I know that Dan Snyder, who is the owner of the Redskins, would walk around and constantly quote, "Oh, there was a study done that showed 90% of Native Americans didn't feel like it was offensive." That was bullshit. That was absolute bullshit. And listen, if maybe your intent was to be respectful, but if the people group themselves are saying, we find that very offensive, then you should probably take a step back. So, I mean, my thoughts on it, I think it's probably a smart move. And yes, the Redskins only decided to make the change once all the corporate sponsors finally said to the Redskins, if you don't change this name, we're pulling our corporate sponsorship. We're not going to give you these tens of millions of dollars anymore unless you change the name. I know the league has wanted them to change the name for a long time. There's been a lot of pressure for them to change the name. And I think it's probably a smart move. It's probably a smart move. And the team is still the team. They're just going to change the name. And I think it's probably a smart move. But that's just me. All right, next up. Chris J. Warden writes, R.I.P. Kelly Preston, which we talked about off the top. Gone too soon. I just mentioned the other day how good she was in Twins. Condolences to the entire Travolta family. And again, it's when I think of Kelly Preston, my thought doesn't immediately go to these movies she was in. It goes to, man, her and John Travolta, they were doing something right. Like, they're one of the few big celebrity married couples that actually seem to do it right. 28 years they were married. 28 years. And I think that says something. I really do. And yeah, too soon, Chris. Too soon. I absolutely agree with you, brother. All right. Next up, Chris Warden also writes, on a more positive note, I just watched Greyhound last night and I really enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's no Saving Private Ryan, but still another solid outing by Tom Hanks. I would agree with that. It's too bad the theaters are still closed because it deserved to be shown on the big screen. You know, I think I mentioned that when I was reviewing it, that the moments that are, you know, edge of your seat, thrilling kind of stuff and tension probably would have been amplified 3 times if it was properly being shown on a real movie screen. If you were actually in a darkened theater with a larger than life movie screen and all that action was playing out, it would have affected the experience a lot. Probably would have affected it a lot. And again, at the end of the day, I felt a little disappointed by the movie. It did not have the same impact on me, but I'm glad you liked it, Chris. And I agree with your assessment. I do. All right, next up. Curtis Lopez writes, nice to have you back, John. Thank you so much, Curtis. It's good to be back. Just letting you know that I officially started a YouTube channel called Curtis the Cinematic. Good for you, man. I always encourage people to start get their own blogs, YouTube channels, podcasts going. Good on you for that. Where I review movies, TV shows, and other stuff. On my channel, I also produce a show called Cast to the Future, where me and a panel talk take movies 20 years or older, pretend it was never released, and cast it for the modern era. To the first episode is appropriately Back to the Future. That sounds like a lot of fun. Listen, I'm always telling people, I think the film fan community needs you to get involved. Add your voice to the conversation. It doesn't matter if you have 5 readers, viewers, or listeners, or 5,000 readers, viewers, or listeners. I think getting your own blog, podcast, Instagram account that's specifically about talking about your love of your fandom, I think when you add to the conversation, it's great for the exercise of your own fandom, and you're adding to the overall fan community. I think that's great, and I think more people should do it. So good on you, Curtis. All right, Isaac Beebe writes, 1 of 2. I have an amazing idea. I've had an amazing idea for years, and that is to do a spin-off of Back to the Future following the 1955 Biff, who is given the sports almanac by his 2015 self and seeing his journey from placing his first bet on and winning millions to his 21st birthday in 1958 to starting Biffco Enterprises and manipulating and marrying Lorraine and killing George McFly, both in 1973, tearing down the courthouse and building the casino hotel to finally Marty showing up in 1985 asking Biff about the almanac. I'm going to be honest with you, Isaac. I don't think it works. I don't think it's kind of like, to me, the idea of hey, let's go see the adventures of young Yoda. We already know what happens. We don't need to see it. You know, I don't feel like there's any need for that. I'm not saying that you can't do any kind of Back to the Future spinoff, but like any movie franchise, I think if you want to do something like that, do something original. Don't cover all the ground that we already know what happens there. You know what I mean? Like, we already know all that. We already know what happens. So I got to say, I'm not down with the idea. I got the idea in general of a spinoff of some sorts. Sure. But if you're going to do it so it's something that doesn't just cover territory we already know. I don't think there's any value in that personally, but you know, I carry that same feeling over from Star Wars, right? I just don't see a lot of value in that. So yeah, I'm not, the idea of a spinoff, great, but I'm not down with the idea of following that Biff covering all the ground we already know that he does. So that one doesn't work for me quite as well, Isaac. I got to admit. All right, but thanks for sharing your ideas, man. All right, REA writes, 1 of 3. Hi, John. Hope all is well. Thank you so much, Ari. I totally agree with you that Superman doesn't have to be portrayed only as a Caucasian-looking character. He can be black as Kryptonian, as a black Kryptonian as well. But my question will be this then. Would being raised as a black child in Kansas affect his outlook to the world? How would the Kents react when they find a black baby? How would they explain adopting a black baby? How would the world USA react to the godlike black hero? And do you think these would be interesting questions to explore in a tentpole movie? It sounds a bit Elseworlds, but I think if done right, this can give a great message when we need one these days. Thanks, hashtag Black Lives Matter. Well, okay, so for those of you who know what Ari is asking about, I have said for a long time, I don't care what race you make any character. Race switch, it doesn't matter to me. As long as the ethnicity of a character isn't directly tied into an imperative DNA of who and what that character is. You know? For instance, people today know Nick Fury as a black character, but you can make the next, whenever they reboot the MCU, whether it's 10 years or 30 years from now, you can do it with a white Nick Fury because Nick Fury being black isn't important any more than Nick Fury being white, which he was before, was important. The ethnicity of that character is completely inconsequential. It doesn't matter. And if you've got a problem with it, then it's just because you want to have a problem with it. But there are some characters that I believe their ethnicities, they're very, very rare, but their ethnicities are directly tied into the core DNA of who and what that character is. As an extreme example, T'Challa in Black Panther, right? That's kind of important. I've said before that I think also maybe Bruce Wayne, because the DNA and understanding his upbringing in extreme white privilege, I believe kind of is tied into the core of who and what that character is and what he represents. And you can agree or disagree. It's all cool. It's all fine. But Superman? Guess what, folks? Superman's not white. Oh, he looks white. Sure. The traditional Superman image, he looks white. But newsflash, everybody, Superman ain't no Caucasian male. He's an alien organism who's not even a human being. Newsflash, he ain't white. He looks white. But one of the questions that has often come up is, to your point, Ari, is, you know, what ramifications would there be about a Superman who's not a human being and isn't actually black, but has the appearance of a black American? How does that change things? I think it depends on the era. Because all the stuff you're mentioning, Ari, I believe if it was like an older era of Superman, where it was the 1940s, that this alien creature in the space pod that looked like a black American crash landed on a farm in Kansas, and in the 1940s, that's a very different story than an alien pod that crash lands in the 1990s. Right? Because if we're dealing now with a 31, 32, 33-year-old Superman, we're looking at crashing in 1990, right? The story implications of that happening, I believe, in like the 1940s or 1950s versus happening in like the early to maybe mid-1990s, I think changes the narrative a bit. I think once you get into the 1990s, look, everybody knew that Kents adopted a baby. I think in the 1940s or 50s, adopting a black child, huge issue at that time. In the 1990s, I don't know if it'd be considered much of an issue. So I don't know. I'm not sure. But it just kind of adds to the thing that I just don't think it changes the story of Superman that much, whether he's Henry Cavill, who is my favorite Superman of all time. Again, let's get over there. Just because, you know, we can't see his face, but let's just get over there and get a good shot at Henry. Where's Henry? There's Henry. There's Henry Cavill, my favorite Superman of all time, Henry Cavill. I just think, I don't know that it changes the story that much, which I believe actually makes it easier today if you wanted to, like all other things being equal to me, keep having Henry Cavill as Superman. Like if I was a studio head and I could recast Superman with a black actor, or I could keep Henry Cavill, I'm keeping Henry Cavill because he's my favorite Superman of all time. But I think today you could make a switch to a black Superman because he's not a human being. He's not a Caucasian male. He just has the appearance of one. I believe today it makes it even easier because he didn't crash land in Kansas in 1948. He crash landed in Kansas in like 1991 or 1992. And I think that makes it easier to make that transition if you wanted to make that transition. So that's kind of my thoughts on that, Ari. Excellent observation. Excellent question to raise, Ari. I really appreciate you bringing that up, dude. All right, we just got a few minutes left here, guys. Then we got to wrap it up. I'll get through a couple more here. Slevin Beam writes, a year ago, I was complaining to you that I won't be able to watch Doctor Who because HBO Max was taking it. I lucked out, though. I subscribed to HBO with a Spectrum. I got access to the app for free. Hope your time off was beneficial. Good to see the full show back. Well, thank you so much, man. And it's great to have the full show back. And again, there are ways for me as a Roku user to get HBO Max. I can get it as a third-party addition onto something like Hulu or something like that. But I don't want to have to go digging through my apps to get to HBO Max. I want to have when I open my Roku, I want to have my Netflix there. I want to have my DC streaming universe there, although that's not going to be there for much longer. I want to have my Amazon Prime. I want to have my Hulu. I want to have Disney Plus, and I want to have my HBO Max right there. Just open my menu. That's the app I want. I don't want to have to go digging through subcategories to get to HBO Max. Please, HBO Max. Get your shit together. Get HBO Max on the Amazon Fire Stick. Get on a Roku. These are the two biggest streaming platforms in the world. You guys got to get around to it. All right, guys, listen. There are still more questions to come. We've got questions outstanding still to come to us from Silly Goose, Edward Wells, Tom Weinberg, and a whole bunch more. But we've run out of time for today. But do not worry, guys. I'm going to do a companion video today answering all the rest of your questions. This is our first show back in 3 weeks and the first show at all in about 4 days. So we had a big backlog of questions. We got through most of them today, though, but we still have a bunch to get to. And I will answer the rest of your questions today on a companion video. Keep your guys' eyes open for that a little bit. And don't forget, guys, you can start sending in questions now for tomorrow's show. Get your questions in now. You'll be one of the first questions that get answered on the show tomorrow. Just use the tip link in the description of this video. You can click on it. It's at the top of the description of the video, or you can enter it manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be back and great to be doing the show again. Thank you guys for making this show a part of your day and spending some of your time here with me. Make sure you spread the word that the John Campea Show is back, and we will be back again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you especially to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you were doing it. And all of us involved here, thank you guys very much for that. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Thanks so much for being here. My name is John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.